This is a continuation of a call recorded on May the 3rd, 2025, in which we discuss connecting with and getting information from your future self, which is the part of you that has already achieved and is enjoying the lifestyle that you imagine for yourself. Hi, Michael.
Yeah, better late than never. Huh?
Better late than never is absolutely right. So, any comments there, Michael or Sandra?
Yeah, if I may question,
Sure.
for myself, I have an audition coming up on Monday, okay?
Yep.
And same casting director that I had an audition about 2 months ago. Now, 2 months ago, it was a horrible audition. I just froze. It didn't work out, and I left there feeling a little disappointed. So my
Right.
mind right now is, okay, I'm going back to the past uh, feeling that I got from there, a negative feeling I got from there. And if I focus on that, I believe that's going to influence how I am at my audition on Monday. So what I'm doing is rather than looking at the past, I'm looking at the future
Right.
on how that audition will be. It will, how I feel positive, just imagining how it went in a positive way. So I'm just questioning. So it's just taking a look at where's my thought process? Is it in the past or is it in the future? And
Well,
if
it's in
it's
both.
in the past, it's good. Yeah, it's in the both, but it's what I'm connected to
Yeah.
will influence. Um, I believe will influence my future.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. One of my favorite expressions, I'm not sure if I made it up or I heard about it somewhere, but it's nothing means anything and everything means something. And so what that means is no single event means anything. But what we do as humans, we put a meaning on it. So, for example, you had an audition, you said a couple months ago, Michael,
Mhm.
and it didn't go anywhere.
Mhm.
And that's what you believe, right? It was you said it was, you blew it, it didn't work out, whatever, right? Well, that's a meaning that you put on it.
Right.
And you have good reasons for that. I mean, part of it is your personality and your thought habits and that kind of thing.
Mhm.
But the other part of it is you're human, and that's what humans do. We put a meaning on everything, right? So obviously, I would say, well, that past audition that you did was successful from one standpoint. That is, the guy called you back. He must have seen something in you that at least said, "Hey, this is possible for this guy," because he called you back for this next one, right?
Just to interject, no, I wasn't called back. It's just the same. It's just the same casting company.
Well, that's what I mean. That's what
Yeah.
I mean. But it's the same guy, right? You said it
No,
was the same guy?
no, it's not. It's a casting company, but maybe a different director, different. So
Oh, I see. So it's
it's
not the same
all I'm
director.
just relating to. I'm going to the same building where the audition
Oh,
is.
I see. Okay.
Probably no
Yeah.
connection, but
Okay.
I did attach a meaning.
Okay. Yeah, I misunderstood. I
Yeah,
thought
okay.
I thought it was the
No,
same director.
no.
Oh, okay.
That would be different.
Yeah, okay. That's
Okay.
true. That's true.
Yeah.
Yeah, so at any rate, so the meaning that you put on it is up to you, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
And now the meaning is mental, right? Like, for example, if I say, here I am in my living room today and I'm happy because you guys are here, right?
Hmm.
Well, I'm here. That's true. I'm here in the living room. I'm doing my Zoom call. You guys are here and we're talking and all that's true. That's my description of the physical world. But if I say I'm happy that you're here, well, that's me. That's my meaning, right? That's something that's totally different. I could be angry that you're here. I could be depressed that you're here. Hey, how come there's not five more people here? I could go anywhere with that. So those feelings about what it means and how it feels to me, that's that's the key, right? I mean, that's what we want to be able to use, i.e., using a past success. Like I
Or are
mentioned.
you saying I can go back and change my meaning?
Oh, you can change the meaning,
Yeah. So
absolutely.
change the
Yeah.
meaning.
But for you, probably, equally as important as the meaning would be what did you learn from it?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
Because that's important, right? I mean, you said you had a lousy audition, you felt bad about it, you blew it, you were too nervous or whatever. Well, okay, that's something. So if you ask yourself, what can I learn from this?
Yeah.
Because let's face it, it's a learning experience. I mean, if you look at any successful actor, the chances are pretty good that they do dozens and dozens, if not hundreds of auditions before they ever sort of consistently get roles, right? Of course, when you get a role, then you're in a different category because people can see your work, and maybe your auditions are more successful in the future if you still have to do auditions. But certainly when you begin, I'm guessing, because I'm not an actor, I've never done this, but I'm assuming, that you go for auditions for years. And I hear stories all the time, what's his name? Bruce Willis, he used to be a bartender, right? And then he decided he wanted to be an actor. And he was going for auditions for a long time before he ever got any roles, And lots of times they just get a bit part or a walk-on role. They never get a line, they're just in the background, right? Like Michael Caine said, for a number of years, when he started getting parts in movies, he was the policeman that came in at the end and took the guy away. Like that was his role. So it's a process. I guess that's the main thing. It's a process. You go for auditions and you do your best. So what does it mean to do your best? Well, of course, this is your job, right? You've got to be in the mindset of the character if you're doing a character, or if you're applying for a certain role, then you've got to be that person. And the more you can mentally, and I guess also physically, get into the mindset and the role of that character, if you can make the director forget that he's watching an audition and get the impression that he's watching this actual character in the play or in the screenplay, you probably get a good chance at the role, right? And so the idea of sort of getting immersed into the character, that's your job. I mean, that's what you're studying. And if you can do it and do it effectively, then you have a shot. And of course, you realize that you could do a fantastic audition and the director or whoever, the casting director, whatever, could love you, but you might just be the wrong look. You might be too tall. You might be too short,
Well, there's what he's saying. So, sorry to interrupt, but what I did is I went back to that in my mind and imagined how I would have done it, and did it that way. Yet that doesn't guarantee that I would have got the gig. Okay,
right.
So the same thing. So if that happened, if I did have a good audition, went there, I wouldn't have really learned anything from it to some degree. I just went, okay, I didn't get it. But me going back and realizing what I did or didn't do is helped me learning that can apply to the next one. So even though I wasn't very successful, the learning process was very positive.
Yeah, well, that's the process that you're in. I mean, this
Yeah.
is the decision that you made, was to get into this process, right?
Yeah.
It's a little like, going to the bar and meeting women. I mean, we all did that in our 20s, right? You're looking for Miss Right, or maybe Miss Right now. But, you talk to a lot of women before you find one that's, that's attractive and that's attracted to you, right? So what I would do if I were you, this is what I would do. I would imagine myself walking out of the audition place after it's over, thinking and feeling like I did a great job there. I did the best audition I could do right now. And I hope I get it. And maybe I will, maybe I won't. and it's a crapshoot. You know, you flip the coin, you can get, you know, you flip the coin, it could be heads or tails. You can get 3 heads in a row, and you think, the next one's going to be a heads. Well, it's 50-50. You know, you can't tell. So that's the only thing you can think about. You know, you can't. I would say as much as possible, don't think about. Now, this is from the Bhagavad Gita, right?
Mm-hmm.
This is like, 5,000 BC. This is Krishna talking to Arjuna, if you know that story. And if you don't know it, I'll tell you what it is. Krishna says to Arjuna, your job is to act, not to determine the outcome of the action.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Your job is to do your job, not worry about what happens next.
Mm-hmm.
So this is 5,000-year-old advice here from the Mahabharata, or at least the Bhagavad Gita, which is chapter 9 of the Mahabharata. And I wouldn't be surprised if that's in Star Wars too, because that tale, that story, the Mahabharata, that was one of the stories that George Lucas modeled Star Wars after, right? These warring factions, going on for years and years, and these battles. That's what the Mahabharata is about. And so the Bhagavad Gita, which is kind of like the Bible in Hinduism, I mean, it's a famous book. Everybody reads, most of Hindu music, action, movies, everything is based on the Bhagavad Gita. And that's one of the key points in there, where he says, your job is, do your job. Don't worry about the outcome. Which is, in a sense, this is what Buddhism says too. Don't be attached to the outcome. Your job is not to be in there worrying about, gee, I hope I get this job. You do that, you're going to blow it, probably, right?
You're attached to the outcome, it's going to affect what you're doing.
Exactly. You can't think about the outcome. I mean, so when it's over, this is what I would do. I would say, I would put myself, I'm walking out of the room and I'm going, man, that was a great audition. That was the best I could do. That's aim for that. That's what I would say.
And kind of when he started talking, it reminded me of something. I was a big Angela Lansbury fan,
Right.
and I read the book The Magic of Believing years ago.
Claude Bristol, yeah.
And it wasn't until I was like rereading it, like years later. There's a chapter in there called Women and the Science of Belief, but he quotes Angela Lansbury, and it's really a great little passage. So if the book you can still get it. It's called Magic of Believing, and if you look at that chapter, it's like Angela Lansbury, and she talks about how she approaches it, and like the subconscious mind, what she believes in tapping into the subconscious mind. And she says, like in her mind, when she's playing out, be Sarah Bernhardt, be this, she says, I may not attain that, but to have that mental construct in her mind. So anyway, it's a really interesting little passage. It's only like just like one couple paragraphs in there. But anyway, I was fascinated by it. So, and then especially since she talks about acting and how she approaches it.
Right. So. Yeah, exactly. Be the character. Don't try and predict what's going to happen. Just be as much as you can. Use all your acting skills, to just be that person. Now, there's a couple of other things which I'll throw in here, just by the way, your goal, of course, is to get the role and to get paid and, get more roles. Obviously, that's why you're doing it. But, part of your role, part of your job is, because this is the path you're on, acting as a way to enlightenment, we talked about that, right? This is your path to enlightenment. So when I went to England last year, or last 2 years ago, 2023, part of what I did was I put myself in the position mentally where I was in front of a crowd of people in England giving a talk. Or that was because that was my goal. One of my goals was to give a talk there, to be invited to give a talk, right? And so when I was there, I did that, right? And I was fully conscious of the fact that this used to be a dream and now it's real. So I was aware of all of that. But at the same time, it was just another day, right? What are you doing tonight? Oh, I'm going to go down and give a talk at this place here. So it was easy. It wasn't a big deal. I mean, even though it was a big deal in a way, it wasn't a big deal at the time. It was just me saying, okay, I got to give a good talk for this audience here. These people have paid to hear me talk, so I want to do a good job. So I was just trying to be playful, and be funny and whatever when I was there. So yeah, it's great that you got an audition coming up. Good luck, all the best. I wish you well, I'm jealous too, a little bit, but that's okay. Yeah, so believing, right? Believing. And yeah, so the other thing I was going to say was that if your mind is always in the past and in the future. See, I can remember now being in England in 2023. I can remember being in that building and doing a talk for these people. So now that's my memory, right? It's just a memory. But I had a similar experience before, which I would call a dream or a goal, right? So the goal was non-physical. It was just an imaginary event. And now it's an imaginary event too, when I think of it. It's a memory. We call it a memory, So it's the same kind of a thing. So what I've learned over the years, and I've been into this now for 60 years or more, 65 years, but certainly since I figured out the idea that thinking is time travel, a memory is the flip side of a dream. A dream is the flip side of a memory, in a sense. When I go to the store, if I go, or like I mentioned earlier, going downtown to get a haircut, that's a goal. And then when you're in the salon, you're getting your haircut. That's physical now. You can use your physical senses. And then when you come back home, you can remember, having your hair done. So one of the things I believe, and I'm not the only person to talk about this. As a matter of fact, Carl Jung talked about it in the 1880s, I believe. And what he said was, if something catches your attention and it excites you, it might be your future self trying to manifest in the present. Right? So in other words, you might say, well, part of the reason I had the idea to go to England and give a talk was because when I was in England, I could remember having that thought. Right? So in other words, Michael, what I'm trying to say is the reason that you're interested in acting and getting in movies and doing commercials, part of the reason is because it's your, let's say, destiny. Right? That's why you're thinking about it. That's why it interests you. That's why you're going through all this effort to do it, is because there's a spark there, So Carl Jung would say, maybe it's because your future self is calling to you. Right? Now that's a great idea, I think. And it's also a meaning, that you could put on it. You could just say, hey, this is my destiny, right? And I'm quite sure that a lot of actors could relate to that, I mean, reading stories and paying attention to actors is one of my favorite things. I mean, I've read lots of books about it. I pay attention to actors being interviewed, all the time. I watch videos about them and I pay attention to them. And because they're examples of people who are creating their dreams, right? And it's also true about people like, Jeff Bezos. He's not an actor, but he's also created his dream, of this big global company, right? But certainly when it works, then you can, then oftentimes you sort of go, I kind of knew that was going to happen, right? So
that's interesting when you said that your future person is calling you. When you said that, there I was in the future. Come here, Michael. Keep coming.
right.
Keep coming.
Right.
And that's exactly what I saw and felt. And a lot of times when I'm in a situation and it's work, whatever it could be, networking, whatever, and it's working, and you feel it's just a nice connection. It's that connection to that future self. It's
Yeah,
interesting.
I'm sure. Like if you talk to Michael Caine, which I'd love to do, I'd love to talk to Michael Caine. I don't know if he would,
Call
talk to
him.
me, but he's 93 now or something. But anyway, or 92, I think. But anyway, I'm sure, like, he was driven to become an actor. And the thing that drove him, because, he had no relation to acting, he didn't know anything about it. He didn't know any actors or, and he was from the wrong strata of society to be an actor. In the early days, people said to him, there's no place for you in this business. You're just the wrong person, because he was a Cockney, right? Had this accent, which identified him to people in England as a lower class person, right? And so it was an uphill battle and a struggle, I suppose, for 12 years before he got his first big role in Zulu. And then all of a sudden, kaboom, he exploded, But I'm sure at some point in there, maybe after a few years, maybe 5 years or 10 years of being a movie star, I'm sure that if you said to him, did you ever think that maybe this was your destiny? It wouldn't surprise me a bit if he said, yeah, as a matter of fact, I always felt it was my destiny, That's why I kept trying. So it's an interesting way of looking at it, right? Because when let's assume that you get a role, right, or an opportunity, you get hired, whether it's this one or the next one or the one after, we don't know, but you're going to be able to remember being here talking about this with us. So there's obviously a connection. Now, from that end, the connection, we call it a memory, but from this end, what do you call it? Well, you call it a goal or a dream or a fantasy or a wish or whatever you want to call it. But it's certainly a real possibility. Like when I was interviewed by Joe Vitale, he said, "I have one question for you. Is the future real?" And I said, "Absolutely, it's real. We don't know exactly which one is going to become real, but it's definitely real. It's real already. In some ways, it's real. Like St. Augustine said, the past and the future exist in my mind, and they have a reality of sorts. So that reality of sorts is, to me, it's energy. It's a connection. So, any other comments before I move on to complex equivalence?
Yeah, I'd like to enter a comment in there.
Yeah, go ahead, Mike.
Regarding Michael, I've been reading this or listening to an audio book. I'll give you the name as soon as I pick up the phone, but I'm kind of trying to juggle a couple things right now. But what I was listening to here is all these different varieties of inputs. They're all like variables that you can consider as you're going into this audition, right? This book really just hammered it in my head that we can. It's so amazing. The book talks about one variable, but it doesn't consider Anthony's, timeless thing. But when you integrate them together, all of a sudden it just like explodes into something even bigger and better. And that's why I love coming to these things and listening and contributing, because we get to share and learn something new today. You want to meditate, and you want to see yourself getting that position, and the joy and the handshaking and the congratulations afterwards, and there's the terms postulates. It's a variation in the infinite amounts of variations that could happen here, right? So that's why you want to be trying to meditate your way into getting up on the right side of the bed every single day up to that, so that it's just so easy for you to get up out of bed. So meditating on everything from the beginning to the end, even kind of not putting too much attention on it, but saying one of the variations, the guy might be considering another person, and but you're up there in the top 3 or whatever. You can get them to change their mind. Visualize showing them all your strengths and that you shine more than the others. And you can actually start to change their mind in the future. And so you go in there and it'll just happen, because we create the future, right? We make the choice. We're the ones that we're creating money every day. We don't even realize it with our signature. We've been so under this false teachings of our, right from elementary school up to now. We're just taught to have this negative, and all these negativities, right? And so you want to meditate and visualize the postulates, the variations around the successful winning of the role, right? And so you want to kind of cover it. It's like I would say, if frequencies were on a wheel of 360 degrees, right? And there's just infinite variations in that from the center. You kind of focus in that one area, and then just think of all the times you've been in the flow state, and that you were winning these auditions, and how it felt afterwards, and the handshaking and congratulations, and this is your start date, right? You want to just be soaked in that, in your meditation. Just try not to go up too on the negative, and maybe it'll happen, maybe it won't. You want to go full on in that I guess it would be like a section of frequencies of winning, and just kind of stay in there, and just you'll ace it, because you're going to be that professional you already are. Like Jim Carrey, imagine getting what was it, $1 million check or something?
25 million, I think.
Yeah, and he got it, right. He just, and what he did was sit on the hills of Hollywood, and he just looked down at the town, and kind of just meditated himself into getting in there and being a huge success.
Yeah, that's great. That's good, Michael. Another thing that I would mention, and Michael kind of alluded to this, I think, in a way, and that is, imagine that this is your 10th job. In other words, you had a number of auditions in the past, some of which worked out, some of which didn't. Right? So maybe you're going for your 10th job now, or your 20th job, whatever, just pick one. And just imagine this is it, So you can remember having a great audition and failing. You can remember screwing up in the past. You can remember getting hired in the past and maybe being surprised because you thought you had a lousy audition, but you still got the job because you looked right. You know what I mean? Maybe you have no control over it. So I would say, think about this is the 10th one. And I don't know how many jobs you've had in the past like this, but put yourself in that mindset that, okay, I've failed before and I've won before, and here I am going through it. And it might be, that might make you think about when you do that audition, you might go in there thinking, I don't give a shit if these guys hire me or not. You know, who cares, right? Pardon my French there, but so yeah, certainly put yourself in the future. You know, absolutely. I think that's a given, right? Join us in this online community for $1 a day. You get your own PDF copy of the book upon which this entire training series is based. 2 powerful meditation recordings, this Design Your Life workbook, and a 4-hour video course that tells you how to use it to change your life step by step. Go to learntodesignyourlife.com.